What's up, everybody? We are back with another track breakdown. Today is going to be our song Missin. It's our latest release and our first release on a label. It was signed to Decipher Records. So we'll just get into this right away. No intro. If you have any advice on how to improve these videos, feel free to put it in the comments. Yeah, let's get started. I'll play the track and then we'll get into it. All right, so that's just so you could hear a little bit of the track if you've never heard it before. So this song, I started this song. Actually, we were just going through some splice samples and found this one of these samples. They're actually all from the same pack and kind of lame, but it sounded cool and kind of brought up the idea of the whole track. So this is how it started. I think it was originally this one. I think, yeah, but the reverbed version. So that's kind of what gave me the inspiration for the track. Really liked the sound, and it just seemed like an epic breakdown type of vibe to me. So that's where it all started. Ended up getting a few different, so these ones kind of layered together. We'll get to the synth sounds, but that's, I just wanted to tell you how it like came to be, I guess. So let's start with the kick and bass group here. We just have a smexoscope, or however you pronounce that, on here, and that's just to see the waveform. I think we're just trying to dial in the low end between the kick and bass, that relationship. And then going to the kick here, we have, we also have a utility. I think we just have this automating. Yeah, during the builds, we bring it down by width towards the end so that the drop feels a bit bigger. We don't always do this, but I try to if I remember to. It just kind of makes the drop feel a lot bigger, and then you can kind of decide whether you want like effects and stuff to get wider as they go through the build, which I'm noticing a lot more on more recent tracks, or if you want it to narrow down as well so that the drop kind of brings the width and makes it feel bigger. We used to do it on the master, started doing it on groups or just elements in general. But yeah, so now down to the kick itself. The kick, we used a sample, it looks like from Splice, from the spinning pack here. Faded it in. We went with audio this time instead of MIDI because I honestly don't know why, but I think we just wanted some more fade control. And as far as EQing, this one we did a bit less EQing, so we're bringing it down here around that 700 area, which we always find to be too knocky. And then also that same area, I think on the last project we kind of showed you as well. 120, I'd say like 120 to 140 ish, but around 135, dialed it in there. And then this is, so we put our kick in mono. We always put our kick fully mono, I'd say. And then bass, we do usually bass mono, but we'll see what we ended up doing for this project. The EQ here, this is just for, filtering for like buildups, breaks, things like that. Cutting out the low end, some of the high end as well, making it feel filtered. Go down to the bass here. It's a bass group, so we will start with the main bass, I guess. So the bass group, we just have it cutting out probably below 30. Yep. So below 30, soft curve here, not a sharp one. This one, we were probably just bringing out some of the mud if it was fighting with something. Honestly, don't know, but that's what it looks like. This is just going to be our filter for builds, things like that. And then we have an endless smile on it, again, for build automation. So we have it turning on and off at the beginning and end of the build. And then the intensity itself is going up about 0.15. Then we go down to the actual bass itself. Let's pull up the patch that we're using here in Serum. Looks like Serum 1. And all right, so this is the patch we're using. This might be the same one from the last project, actually. I'm not too sure, but this is the patch we're using, and it sounds like this. So it has some good low mids there. And pretty much just kind of taming that same area. It's around 150. So that same area that we kind of notice it to be grumbly or, sticking out. This is just cutting off the high end because it's more of a lower bass, low to mid bass. We don't really need the high highs in there, but I mean, that's kind of per taste, I guess. And then we always cut at 30 with like a soft curve here. Pro Q, we are just dipping some more frequencies that we thought needed to be tamed and kind of softening them a bit, not cutting them like crazy to remove them, but just cleaning it up a bit. And then we got the high end again being cut out here. Another fab filter, just doing some more EQ work, cutting out those frequencies that we just didn't like, and some more EQ work. We kind of do it in like incrementally. If we feel like we need more, we just add another EQ instead of tweaking the one that we already have. This is actually not being used at all, so that is what it is. And then this one doesn't look like it's being used at all either, nor is this glue compressor. And then we have kickstart. This is how we have our kickstart set, audio to the kick. So it's sidechaining to the kick, 88%. And then this is the sub bass chain preset. We may have like altered it a bit, but that's the one we used for this track. It's going to depend on how your bass is per track, obviously. Don't use the same one for every track. You got to tweak it depending on what you want for that exact track. Utility here, just bringing down some of the width with, I guess we just did this manually here, but we also did the bass mono at 240. So anything under 240 is going to be mono. We'll change that depending on the bass. I mean, it's not always going to be 240, but let me go down to our Reese. So our Reese here is, simple there. So we have it pitched up here, just bringing it up an octave from wherever the MIDI is. And then let's see what Serum patch this is. So this one, I honestly don't know where I got that preset, but that's the one we ended up using. Probably just searched Reese in the search box, and then that's the one I chose. But yeah, just using a single note and using that for the builds pretty much, I think. Yep, just the builds. And got a kickstart on there. Actually, the kickstart, I wonder if we have one on the, wow. So the kickstart actually isn't even working. I don't know if we changed this before. I don't know if this is actually the final project. This is the newest one I could find, but this might not actually be the final project. So, and we did have to go back and forth with mastering a bit, so we may have rendered it out with sidechains. So, but yeah, this one's not even set on here apparently, and then this is doing nothing. This is just the defaults on my MIDI tracks. And then if we go into drums, we got, so I always just put the EQ at 110. I put this pretty much on anything that's not needing low end. And we have a shaper box, which is actually cutting out. So it's automated to cut out some of the length of the elements. And I think it was more for like, let's see. So I have it turning on in the build to kind of shorten the hats and shorten the claps, things like that. So we can play with and without it just to kind of see what we've got here. Oh, yeah. Let's see. We might only have hat in here. Oh no, claps, I guess. You can see it's kind of choking them a bit and kind of making them shorter. And that's really only in the build, and I think only in that first builds. Yeah. What else do we have here? This is going to be kickstart. This is our side chain, which usually I'll put it on the end, but for some reason it's right here. We must have just kept adding things afterwards. It's going to the kick, and we're using this preset nice and tight. May have tweaked it a bit because it doesn't look like the default one, I don't think. 33%, you just want to go light unless you really want that pumping feeling, but on drums I usually keep it around 30, 33, somewhere around there, just depending on the vibe. Then the FOMO channel strip, this is just for automation, like low pass filter, high pass filter, washout. And you can see, so in the build here, the two builds, we got that. We have a low pass filter filtering up to about 7,000. High pass filter is going up to about 1.4, and then washout bring it up to 69. I guess we did a bit less in the second build. Really just kind of depends on how you want it to feel, and that's where we settled. And the smile, we also have that, so I think that's why we didn't do so much with the washout, but we have it coming out of this bass section into like just for like the transitioning pieces, going into the build here. Have it going up about 0.15 for the builds, and yeah, I mean basic endless smile stuff. We are doing the width, bringing the width down. Again, that same thing that we were doing with the kick and bass group to make the drop feel bigger, and also automating a 1.5 dip in gain for the builds as well, so that the drops again feel bigger. Let's go down to the hat section. So for the hats, we're using this this sample here, put it into a simpler, cutting out the super high end here, the low end there, and then guess I didn't do too much processing on it, honestly. I think I want to say we processed it before putting it in here, but I guess probably not. That was just it. That's all we did to it. And I guess we didn't do much saturation either. Normally I'll put saturation or decapitator on the drums and stuff. Kind of messed that up, but let's see. We have the open hat 10. So this is going to be, so this one's going to be our normal hat, normal hat pattern. And this is only one layer. I think we layered with the sample like we did last time, but normal timing there. This one's going to be on the kick like we did last time. I might have brought them over from the previous track, to be honest. And then we have the little like drill thing that we had on the last track as well, which I don't know why I have one here. Maybe that was a mess up, but that's all that is basically. Let's see. So on this one that's hitting on the kick, we have some EQ work here, just bringing it up around 5.6. And then this isn't doing anything. Kickstart. This one is not sidechained to the kick. It's just going to just in sync on quarter notes at 70%. Just using this free punch and then a vocoder to make it more like white noisy, I would say. Let's A/B it. Makes it more shakery, I guess. White noisy. I don't really know how to explain it, but I really like the texture of doing that. If you want to kind of soften it up, blend it into the track a bit more. Clap, snare. It's going to be the same as the last project, but since this is a new video, let's go over it here. Oops, sorry. All right, so the group for the clap and snare, we're bringing it up around 2000. Then a reverb on here at 23%, cutting out the lows, some of the higher highs, and then a shaper box, which I think this is also making it shorter. Yeah, so this is gating it basically, making it shorter in the build here. So we could play with and without that gate just to see. So it kind of cuts off that reverb tail a bit. And so the first layer is going to be the snare here. And just cutting out the low end here. And that's making it wider, using 66% wider. And then for that one alone. And then if you want to, we can A/B the wider. So makes it seem fuller and bigger than it was. And then we have this layer, and this is the sample from, and we cut out the clap or snare from this sample here and just use that to layer with this clap or with this snare. So yeah, it's a clap. So together. And it doesn't look like we did much processing on this other than cutting this out. And the reverse clap, this one is just giving it a little bit of groove. Didn't really do much to this one. No, we didn't even cut out the low end, but it's cut out on the group anyway. So then we'll go through the drums here, pretty similar to the last track if you watched that video, but we can go over them quick. Cutting out the low end here, using auto pan on the additional drums like all other drums group, and that's just to give it some movement, give it some life, a bit more life than if it was just static. You don't want to go crazy with this. This is pretty low, and honestly probably could have gone lower on it, but let's listen to these quick. We'll just go to like the drop area here. Oh, you know what? These are turned off. Let's see. All right. And so pretty much you got a reverse crash here. Just cutting out the low end. Nothing really fancy about that. The crashes here. cutting out the low end. We're using this preset for delay. West End showed me this, and we're using this here just to give it a little bit more life and give it that delay and ambient feeling. So with and without. All right, so this drum loop, just another sample, and it kind of adds a layer to the hi-hat as well as gives it the 16ths, and this comes in halfway through the drop here. So it sounds like this. And we're EQing a lot here actually, but cutting out below, what is this, like, yeah, 1,000, and then above 14. So cutting out quite a bit, but that comes in just to kind of give a layer to the hat and some change to the track about halfway through the drop there. Actually, this is, what is this? This is 24. So this is actually only in the last 8 bars. And then this is going to be the other layer to our hat, which we took the that clap layer out and put it in the clap group, but this is just another layer to the hat that gives the hat a bit more fullness, and that's only in the drops. Yeah, looks like only in the drops, and it has that open hat at the end there. And then this one is going to be, this one we created by accident, but we thought it was cool, and honestly probably could have been brought up in the final project, but this is just like a reverse as well. Reverse almost sounds like a shaker there. And then coming down here, the last thing we have in the drums group on this track is going to be the ride. So we did pan it 5 to the right. Normally we pan more, I would say, like in like 17, 19, somewhere around there. This one we only did 5, but it sounds like this. And that one we are just cutting out, you know, most of the mids and the lows, and then the really high highs, and then doing a little dip here, probably to give space for something else, or just felt like it needed it. Very little, -1 dB, and using a wider on it, about 48%. All right, so we'll go back to the effects now. Effects we have, we'll start one by one, but let's go on the group here first. So we're just cutting out the low end side chain to the kick, and we are using 38% on this nice and tight preset. I think that's probably the default for it. I don't think we mess with that much at all. And then Endless Smile, this is probably for the builds. Yeah, it looks like for the builds. So and then at the end of the build, it's going up 0.25, just kind of washing it out there. And we have this fill crash, which is this on? Yeah. So fill crash we have here, which is kind of like a transitional piece with like riser type of thing, with crash there into the fill. There's not any processing on this, I guess. The build snare, this is, I think, yeah, in this project we only had this one build snare, but cutting out the lows, we just used a sample for this one. Usually we'll build it ourselves and maybe layer with some samples, but this one we decided to just use a sample. Sounded good, so we left it. And just cutting out the lows on that one. For, I think this is just, let's see what this is. Just a little, like, sounds like a, yeah, vocal synth type of thing. We did some not auto panning, we did some panning here manually. And we're using utility for that. Cutting out the highs and cutting out the lows there. We go to riser 1. So this is a riser in Serum 2. This is the preset for it. I don't know if we did any like automation or anything. I think it just kind of, yeah, I think it was just like that. Cut out the low end here and then did some saturation. This isn't doing anything. And then after the saturation, cutting out the low end again. Riser 2, which kind of joins it there halfway through that last, is this 4 bars? Yeah, last 2 bars here. And that one is the same preset. Maybe we did an octave up or changed something. Cutting out the low end, saturation again, and then cutting out the low end again. This isn't being used together. If we want to listen to them quick. So I thought it sounded pretty sick. The way this comes in and kind of gives it that extra boost right before the drop. So that's how we created that. This is just the down sweep noise down and cutting out the low end and then the very high highs. High end beeping. I don't exactly remember how we made this, but we ended up printing it to audio and then kind of doing some chops and spots where we thought it sounded good. I think I really don't remember, but this is the EQ work we did on it, just kind of making it more into the background by doing that sort of telephone effect by cutting out the highs and the lows. Probably could have put more reverb on it, but I think we did, and then printed it out after. But have a auto pan on there so that it gives it some stereo, like a stereo field, gives us a better like ambient feeling. Just have that crowd noise that we had in the last one, which is super quiet, and the white noise. Just to fill it out, give the track, I would say, the feeling of like being alive and not just like static, as best we can. We have this, which is, I'm assuming, another impact or something like that. Yeah, so impact, cutting out the low end there, not really doing much processing to it. And then build noise, just normal build noise. This one looks like, okay, so I think that one we made from MIDI, but I honestly don't remember. And just cutting out a lot of it right here, to be honest. And then automating the width on the build up just to bring the width up a bit. So instead of bringing it down right before the drop, for these we're bringing it up to make it feel wider and more ambient right before the drop. This riser, what do we have? The riser, we're just using octaves there. So F and then another octave up, layered. Preset is going to be this one here. I don't think we tweaked much in the preset itself. The high end, bringing that out just so it's not like super annoying. The low end there, obviously. And then this isn't doing anything. Kickstart, we have it on audio and it's not sidechained anything, so that's not doing anything either, which I don't know if that was on purpose or by mistake, to be honest. Endless smile, just for the builds, which this is really only in the builds other than this cooldown here. And it looks like we forgot this one. I don't know if we just didn't want it there or not, but auto pan, obviously doing some auto panning, and we have the rate go up as it goes up in the build, and then also the amount as well. And so you can hear the difference here. Let's play it without. gives it that like tremolo effect, and then have the utility here, which is just, you know, same thing, width and gain. And then we have this little transitional piece here, which is actually the riser, I believe, printed out, just so we could control it a bit more and fade it up. The cashmere white noise, we use this on our drops just to get that initial impact a bit more impactful. And so you can hear that. I'll play the full track. You can hear that here. It's not super up in your face, but it does give it a little bit more white noise, you know, for that impact. This one doesn't look like there's anything on. This one is, I'm assuming, another down sweep here, impact type of thing. Yeah, we used that on our last track also. I just really like this sample to kind of give it gives it cool like ambient feeling when it transitions in. This is a clap, or yeah, like clap snare type of thing, or just clap. That's just a little fill right before it switches into the build from this intro like bass section. And then another impact. That one's panning, and together they sound really cool in my opinion. I mean, I'm gonna probably use those on a lot of tracks because you don't really like. They're not really like, you do hear them, but they just kind of give the track a good feeling and smooth transition, in my opinion. As far as effects go, that's pretty much it. Let's go to the synths here. Synths, we'll start with the group first again. See what we got. So cutting off the low end at around 115 with a soft cut here, and saturator, and then cutting out the low end again after saturation. Using kickstart to the kick, sidechaining to the kick, and it's only at 36%, using the nice and tight preset. With synths, we don't usually go too high with the sidechain unless it's for kind of a sound design type of thing, but usually you don't, you know, with synths, because they're hitting they're higher end, they're not really, they don't need to be sidechained like crazy, and you don't want to cut out like the melody or cut out some notes, and usually synths are either smaller or just don't need the sidechain that crazy. So Endless Smile again for the build sections, I'm sure. Yeah, it looks like for the build sections. And then utility, these are actually bringing the width up towards the drop. Yeah, so up about 10% to make anything that's in the builds feel bigger as they go up. But they're also washing out, and then once the drop hits, makes it feel better. All right, so this is the ARP. We had this ARP, I believe, one of the first few elements that we added, and then we had a hard time. We weren't sure whether to bring it up or have it kind of under. We went with under because we have so many other like elements in the track. It was kind of feeling flooded at one point, and this is one of the last decisions we made. We had made this track and sent it out for mastering, and there were a few things when it came back we just weren't happy with. Like the kick was one of them. We ended up switching out the kick, switching out, changing some leveling, and we ended up bringing this acid ARP thing down and more underneath. And I think it really was a good call to do that, because beforehand it just wasn't sitting right. And we ended up having to pay the mastering guy twice because we had told him that it was done, and then we sent it off for in-flight submission in K&B, and it got denied, and we kind of went back and redid some things, and then sent it off to mastering again, so it had it remastered. But anyway, with this one, let's go ahead and hear it quick. So we have it opening up like that. That's with the filter envelope here. Where is that actually opening up? Actually, don't see where we did that automation at, but it says filter envelope. But that's the preset we used, and just did that automation to kind of open up at the end of each 8 bars, and cutting out the low end here, and have a compressor on here. I think we're trying to get it to feel more compressed. I think it was kind of weak at one point, but I don't know if it's even doing anything. Let me see. Yeah, a little bit of compression, but decapitator using the Beefy G preset brought it down to 42% and 3.2 there. Actually, I'm pretty sure it doesn't come at that level, but so I think we did bring it down, but I could be wrong. Cutting out the low end there, and then using Soothe. This is, we're using this to the, and we're side chaining it, which actually we weren't even side chaining it. So what we were trying to do was side chain it to the kick and bass group. We did bring the kick and bass group in here, but we didn't have the actual side chain thing pressed, so that probably would have been good. It's so funny, you see when you go through them again, you see things that you missed, but it is what it is. It's already out now. But we were gonna try to side chain it to the kick and bass group, kind of clean up some space between, have some erosion on here to give it some more like white noise-ish. Let's see. You can hear it gives like a white noise like texture to it. It's nothing crazy, but just trying to make it feel a bit fuller or more full. Cutting out this low end here, cutting out a lot of the high end, make it more filtered sounding, and then these, not doing anything with the utility. This kickstart was off. Widening it about 33%, and then Endless Smile for the builds, or not in the build, so I don't know what this is doing here. Okay, so when it's going up and opening up is when we're using the Endless Smile there. So this is not being used. We didn't use that. This one is this. All right, so just like a womp type of thing, and that is at the end of the drops and then going into the cooldown. Actually, this may have also been a mistake because it looks like we had it here. Normally, we probably should have had it like this, but ended up being in the cooldown instead. Didn't seem wrong towards the end anyway, but that's probably a mistake. I don't think I meant to do that. As far as processing, cutting out low end, saturation, cutting out low end again. Utility not using, and then just the FOMO channel strip. And that's just for decay time. So at the end there, we're using it for like a reverb throw, basically. Lead 1, this is here, this one. So that's, these ones have multiple of these. I think they're the same thing. I think we just chopped them on different spots. And so this one, let's see if we did anything. Not really much, honestly. We have spectral resonator here, cutting out the lows, spectral resonator on F, and then it's at 40%. And that's just giving it a little bit metallic, that metallic sound that everyone seems to be doing these days. Sounds pretty cool, but this one here, same thing, cutting out the lows after the spectral, and then decapitator, and then spectral again, and then we're actually doing a reverb throw on these ones as well. So giving it the those reverb throws. And then this one is it's another synth. I think it's probably from the same sample even or whatever we used. I think it is. Yeah, we used samples, it looks like. I think it's from the same one, but it might be different. And I kind of liked how this one like hit and then does a hard cut, like almost mutes it, and then the delay like reverb comes in afterwards. I thought it was kind of cool sounding. And is this the second drop? No, it's the first one. So that was intentional, even if it kind of seems like it might not have been something that was intentional. I definitely did that on purpose. I just like the way that it felt like almost delayed reverb, like delay for the reverb and delay to actually come in. These ones are the ones that we showed you earlier. So this is the same track here, but in the build. Cutting out the low end, spectral resonator at 40%, cutting out the low end again. Not much processing. Probably could have done a bit more processing on these, but this one is another sample here. That's like the main synth that kind of goes with this one. This is like the wet version. This is like the dry. And we did we put this West End rack on it, which has first cutting out the low end, but this rack has micro shift, and then using the drum bus at 41%, decapitator, and then we put West End vocal processing on there. EQ at the end here. This was all in the rack. Actually, I don't know if this was actually in the rack, but what is this? I don't know if that was actually in there already, but I think it was. This is a different vocal chain that was in one of West End's videos. Just took it and I used different racks on different things, just test them out, even if they're not meant for the certain thing that, like, this is on a synth, right? Like, it's for vocal, but I like to just collect racks and then and then just use them experiment on different sounds and see if something cool comes out. Spectral resonator at 53% this time, cutting out the lows after that, and then a wider at 52%. Then this one is the wet version, which is already pretty much processed. I just did some EQ work, a saturator, and then cutting out the lows after that. This is probably for just bringing down the gain at, so it looks like after the cooldown, we brought it down for the builds here, or we had it up about. So this was probably towards the end when we were kind of going over things and leveling a bit before sending it off to mastering. We ended up cutting or bringing up everything before this like build area by like 0.68, so not much, but just something we thought we needed. And then this one doesn't look like we're actually using it. This one is another, that's another like art melody behind that we used for the builds, and a little bit on the drop here, just like a little bit. Just tiny little segment in the drop in both drops there. And then the drop 2 lead, this is like the lead that comes in towards the end, comes in through the build 2. And then opens up here. And obviously with the track it sounds better, but I actually used a MIDI from a pack, but I think we tweaked it. I don't think we left it how it came. And cutting out the lows here as far as processing, used a compressor on there, and saturation, cutting out the lows after that. Decapitator, This is only at 59.5%. Cutting out the lows after that. Using the OTT gain comped, which I think we got from FOMO. And then cutting out the low end here after that. ROM, which I actually don't really use much anymore, but I do love this reverb. I just never really use it. And it was free. So utility, and then auto pan wider at 36%. Auto filter, this is for just the builds. Opening it up, and then endless smile, doing the same thing it does on everything. Delay, this was for actually just the outro, like going into the outro, just to make that transition a little bit smoother and sound less like all of a sudden just cuts out. As far as the vocal goes, the vocal, we did get it from Splice. It's just a vocal sample from Splice. We thought it fit pretty well and felt, I'm pretty sure it's from Splice. Yeah, it looks like it is. But thought it fit pretty well with like the build-up style, so we went with it. We're trying again not to use Splice vocals anymore. We're trying to really get into the habit of making our own, but this one we had created it and had it in there from the beginning and just thought it fit really well, so we left it. Kind of gave it that dreamy feeling, I would say. But yeah, so we're honestly not the best at processing vocals, and it's something that we're working on, but this was our best take. Vocal, we're cutting on the group itself, we're cutting out the low end there. Kicks, we have, or sidechain to the kick, 44%, using the nice and tight preset there in kickstart, and then endless smile, obviously for the builds again. And so the actual main vocal, we're cutting out the lows. We usually cut around 90 for vocals. Utilities not being used. This is the West End vocal chain again, and so it has micro shift, drum bus about 41%, decapitator, and I'm just opening them quick. If you ever want to look at them and copy them, feel free. I mean, just pause the video and do so. West End vocal rack, that's like the original just vocal rack, and then EQ cutting out the lows, and then the high highs, which was part of this rack. But spectral resonator, turning on and off automation, and that's just for certain parts, like right before the build, it looks like here. It's giving it that sound that everyone seems to be doing these days. This was just a layer underneath, just a lower octave, and that's going underneath it just in this build 2. And then we have this is just to give the track some change in energy. I think it gives a little bit of hype energy in certain sections, so that comes in partway through the drops, stays there for the build, and the cool down gives it that atmosphere. And just cutting out the low end and some of the low mids. And utility, we have the same processing here, and also the wider at 53%. Let's see, this one doesn't look like is anything. This one looks like we're using, this is just a reverse, I believe. Yeah, that's just the reverse going into the vocal to kind of make the transition feel a bit smoother and a bit more natural. This one we're not using at all. And then this one, I believe, is little like ambient style vocal hits as well. Or more transitional, but it's a bit different than this one, but same thing, just for transitional pieces. And that's pretty much it. Really simple track. This time was a lot of like We didn't do too much of our own sound design. It doesn't seem like we used a lot of more samples. Sometimes if we're stuck, we'll just run through samples and see if we find anything that sounds cool. But really, it was because that one that we used that kind of inspired the whole track, that build one. So that kind of just came to life from that, really. But hopefully you enjoyed this. Maybe you learned something. I know it's a pretty simple project. If you have any questions or want me to expand on anything, feel free to ask in the comments. We'll be watching out the comments and replying to everybody. And then also, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. If you want to see more tutorials, let us know what you want to see tutorials on. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.